Bottom line is, man, it's hard to break us now. It's hard to break us. As a matter of fact, you ain't going to do it.
Open look going as he hits it. What a play called by Tom Izzo in that timeout.
I was 7 years old watching a football game by myself, and I saw those winged helmets come out of the tunnel, and I was hooked at that point.
Kane in Chicago! Oh my God! Kane with the overtime winner!
Jameer Gibbs to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. You can't cover that man one-on-one. You just can't do it.
He drives, lobs to JD for a jam.
You play real good, you start. You don't play as good, you work your way back in. It's the American way, except America has gotten soft. But that is the American way. That's the way it works.
This is the 6'6" Kane Cunningham. Jameson Williams, he's got it. Touchdown, Lions. Now it's Larkin with a burst of speed. He scores. Gives the United States the lead for the first time tonight.
Okay, these are the fun days, really. I mean, after a long night of anticipation and trying to figure out who is falling to the Detroit Lions, who is falling to your team in general, then you see your team make the pick. You've opened up the present, and then you start to read the instructions of how this thing is put together. What do you think? Do you like? Are you unsure? Or do you think you're disappointed in the drafting of Blake Miller, the tackle out of Clemson, in which my friend Andy McDonald chose yesterday? We said, final pick, give it to us, and he did. Welcome, everybody, to a Friday edition of X's and Bros. I'm Matt Shepard. Andy McDonald is alongside with us. The Meyer hotline is 866-838-4843. The text is Sports Radio 21,000. You can comment as we stream live on YouTube and on X and on Facebook. First, the Tigers beat the Brewers after a 5-4 come-from-behind win. Detroit was down 4-3 in the eighth. They scored a run in the inning, then got a Spencer Torkelson one-out game-winning homer in the ninth. It's his first ever game winner and second home run in as many days. The guy everybody wanted gone has been a surprise the last 2 days. The guy everybody doesn't want to go was disappointing yesterday. Tarek Skubal allowed 4 runs on 7 hits and 6 innings of work. They are in Cincinnati tonight. NBA, Atlanta holds off the Knicks 109-108. Jalen Johnson had 24 and 11. The Hawks lead the series 2-1. People are freaking out in New York.
That playoff experience. They got it.
So important. Did you see their final possession? And that final possession looked like a thing of beauty. Not.
Yeah.
A team that has been there before. Been there, done that. Not.
Exactly.
I'm not saying the series is over. I just find it very, very funny. First of all, I'm laughing because New York and the talking heads were all about, look, the Detroit really isn't that good. You're going to see what happens. The Knicks are the best team in the East. Blah, 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 blah. And again, I don't think it's over. I think Atlanta's a really good team offensively. But this has been a painful New York experience thus far through 3 games. It can change in the next game. It really can. I mean, you can change it right back. And suddenly you get home court back if you think that matters at all, which personally, I don't necessarily think that. Toronto blows out Cleveland 126-104. Maybe it did matter in that regard. R.J. Barrett, Scotty Barnes each had 33. Cavs are up 2-1 in that series. And Minnesota was 113-96 winner over Denver. They take a 2-1 series lead there. At HL, Carolina trims Ottawa 2-1 to take a 3-0 series lead. Buffalo tops Boston 3-1. You know who won in net for Buffalo?
I did not see, no.
Alex Lyon. He had 24 saves. Sabres are up 2-1. I know. Colorado doubles up the Kings 4-2. They own a commanding 3-0 series lead there. Here's the Mitch Lyons Wealth Poll question. He and I were texting back and forth a little bit last night. So thankful in 2 specific moves. We'll get to that in a minute. Grade the Lions pick of Blake Miller. A, B, C, or wanted someone else? That's the Mitch Lyons Wealth Poll question. Grade the Lions pick of Blake Miller. It's an A, it's a B, it's a C, or you wanted somebody else. You can vote as often as you want. Monday, we'll give you the results, and we'll also have this draft in our rearview mirror. All right. Pittsburgh, according to Roger Goodell, set a draft day NFL record on day one with 38,000 people in attendance. That was a little surprising to me. Was it surprising that the Lions drafted Blake Miller? So this is progressing. The big surprise, obviously, to everybody was Ty Simpson to the Rams. And I don't know if you've seen the press conference from Los Angeles, but it sure didn't look like Sean McVay was all that pleased about what they did. At 13, those Rams selected Ty Simpson, the quarterback out of Alabama. They could have had a franchise guard who plays a lot like their current guard, Steve Avila, but Viveka Aonye lasted another pick. They could have had another edge rusher. They could have had a tackle. They could have had a tight end. They could have had a really good wide receiver in Mekhi Lemon. And they chose to build for the future. They chose to go with, some would argue, need. The need is what? A backup Q. Unless you feel really good about Stetson Bennett, because Jimmy Garoppolo is considering retirement. What'll be interesting is if Jimmy Garoppolo says, you know what, I'm not going to retire. I'm going to stay here in Los Angeles. I'm going to back up Matthew Stafford. And then that pushes Ty Simpson to third and Stetson Bennett probably out, right? Okay. So that was the biggest surprise. But as you watch the draft unfold, I love what Dallas did, and I tweeted that out. I mean, I don't like the Cowboys, but you get Caleb Downs and you get Malachi, from UCF. So many names in our head for crying out loud. Malachi Lawrence, and you do that by trading back. You've had yourself a really good first round. They needed help on defense without question. The people who were projecting, this is why you got to be careful with mock drafts. Not that everybody's dumb and doesn't know what the hell they're doing. I mean, it's a projection. They're trying to think about it, right? They're trying to think of different opportunities. But those who said they were going to take a wide receiver I thought it was ridiculous. There's no way I thought they would take a wide receiver. They need defense. And quite honestly, I thought what they might have done is they might have nabbed Chris Johnson there. Chris Johnson, where Malachi Lawrence was taken. And Chris Johnson is a really good cornerback out of San Diego State. He's considered one of the top corners in the draft. Yeah, he went to Miami a little bit later on. But either way, they got at two different levels, starters, immediate starters, and highly thought of players. Caleb Downs is considered one of the best players in this entire draft. Some are trying to make the argument that he was the best player in the draft. And the Cowboys got him, outside the top 10. They got him at, what was it? 11. They got him at 11.
That's a great pick right there.
It really is. I
don't know how you can even argue it, really.
I think the biggest surprise early on was Tennessee taking Carnell Tate. So we said this yesterday. We thought it would get really interesting at the third pick. We sure wasn't surprised. Obviously, everybody knew Fernando Mendoza. That was the worst kept secret. And then it was an argument between Arvell Reese, the edge rusher from Ohio State, or David Bailey. And I thought the Jets would take David Bailey because he's the most ready pass rusher in the draft and the best pass rusher in the draft. And then it was the Cardinals. And it's like, okay, are they going to trade back and all this? Look, besides Caleb Downs, the other player mentioned among the best player in the draft is Jeremiah Love. So the Cardinals took Jeremiah Love. I don't disagree with that. Now, I don't know. He might get killed because they don't have much of an offensive line. And they got some really good offensive weapons. They really do. It's going to be fun for them there. I thought they may trade back into the first round and grab Ty Simpson. But apparently Jacoby Brissett should be pretty happy if he can get the time. What's Arizona going to do about the offensive line? Because they didn't address that. They'll have to address it in the second round. We'll get to Blake Miller. We'll get to the Lions pick and what you think about it. Looking forward to the feedback. Jim Miller, not Blake Miller's brother, dad, or anything like that, but Jim Miller, the former Spartan quarterback, former Steelers quarterback, former NFL player, joins us at 8:35 here on X's and Bros, brought to you by Mitch Lyons Wealth.
You've worked hard for decades saving in pre-tax retirement plans like 401ks and IRAs, saving on taxes now. But as your retirement now approaches, you're going to get taxed at rates you have no control over. Hi, I'm Mitch Lyons, founder of Mitch Lyons Wealth. Your 401k balance isn't worth what your statement says. You could lose thousands of dollars to taxes, and those distributions can impact other areas of your retirement like Social Security and Medicare. Could a Roth IRA conversion be of help to you? You've probably heard of Roth conversions, but it can be confusing. Should you convert all at once or over time? Where should you pay the taxes from? How do you know for sure? Get our free personalized Roth Blueprint analysis today to find out exactly what makes sense for you. Your Roth Blueprint could potentially increase your lifetime wealth by thousands of dollars. So get your free Roth Blueprint today. Text Blueprint to 844-867-8335. That's Blueprint to 844-867-8335. Or go to MitchLyonsWealth.com, your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement.
Make sure you listen weekly to our Moving Ferris Forward interviews with Ferris President Bill Pink and other leaders who are moving Ferris forward. Find out more about Big Rapids and Ferris and what they have to offer at ferris.edu.
If you're the largest selling comedy recording artist in history,
you might be a redneck.
Jeff Foxworthy, Friday, June 12th, inside the Soaring Eagle Entertainment Hall.
Our parents can't text and our children can't write.
Tickets start at $60 and are on sale now at the box office and online at etix.com. Laugh it up at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, Friday, June 12th with Jeff Foxworthy.
My father-in-law got his chest hair caught in his zipper.
SoaringEagleCasino.com.
There's a lot of things about. I love the way he plays the game. You know, there's a way that he prepares. There's a way that he trains to get ready. All those things, but really, when you just turn on the tape, the guy, he's a physical finisher, man. That's what he does, and he's got versatility, obviously, pass pro and run game, and so we just felt like he was a really good fit for us.
And Campbell talking with WJBK Channel 2 in Detroit following the drafting of Blake Miller. Welcome back, X's and Bros, Monday through Friday, 6 until 9. We welcome your feedback on thoughts of Blake Miller. When people talk about needs, oftentimes I shake my head and say, you take best player available. In this case, based on what Brad Holmes has said, what Dan Campbell has said, what everybody has projected this player to be, it sure seems like the Lions got both. It sure seems like he is a Dan Campbell type player, which is a good thing, of course, but it's also addressing a need and a guy they appear to have really high on their board. When did you know or get a feeling that he might be that guy? You know, we've talked already. No surprise in 1. No surprise at the position in 2. Some people might have thought Arvell Reese. Jeremiah Love at 3. Then the Carnell Tate choice, which seemed odd. But look, Cam Ward is their future. You want to give him some weapons. I just thought there might be a Jeremiah Love go there if the Cardinals hadn't taken him. And I thought they might do something a little bit. I thought they might go offensive lineman there, but maybe they felt like 4 was too high. Some people feel that way. I thought the Giants had a pretty damn good draft, but I don't think they believe that Arvell Reese would have been there for them. They grabbed him. A lot of people questioned that because look at all the defensive or the edge rushers that they have. I would remind you that Kayvon Thibodeau is a guy they're in all likelihood not picking up that 5th-year option, right? Kansas City moved up to take Mansour Delane. Remember, they lost a couple of members of their secondary. And then Washington got Sonny Styles, who I really like this dude. I mean, if you think about it, Sonny Styles has the same height as Calvin Johnson. He ran the same 40 time as Bijan Robinson. He's 8 pounds lighter than Derrick Henry at 244. And he had the same broad jump of Julio Jones.
And he plays linebacker.
And he'd
have brought up those stats the most other. I mean, if you would put no name on it, no position, I don't even think that's the first thing I would have guessed. That's for sure.
Me either. But that's crazy. If you look up the research, it's unbelievable. Jordan Tyson then went out of Arizona State. He went to New Orleans. Makes sense. Really good player. And considering they get Tyler Shuck and they feel like, he's the future, you need some weapons there. Okay. Then Cleveland went Spencer Fano. They traded down. They got the guy they wanted, guy who can play tackle or guard, and what some people considered the best tackle overall. Worried about the arms a little bit. See, when people talk about Ruben Bain, and I was with some folks last night early who wanted the Lions to do whatever they could to trade up to get Ruben Bain. And I said, you realize a player with those short arms, and there's a reason that at the combine they measure those types of things or on pro day. You know why it is because when you're rushing off the edge and you're going up against a tackle, a right or a left tackle who has really long arms. If you look at Blake Miller's numbers, you'll see this. Long arms. It's hard to get inside. Ruben Bain is a guy who at Miami was really good. He was the best. You could argue he's the best pass rusher in college football last year. But he's a bull rusher. He overpowers guys. And he was really good against Indiana. Indiana's tackles aren't going in the first round. He's not going up against guys from Virginia Tech in the NFL. Now, I will tell you this. If you look at some of the tape, he beat Blake Miller. So he went up against some really good players. I'm not taking anything away from Ruben Bain, but they made a big deal about his short arms. It's the same thing with Spencer Fano. And that's why they may move him inside. I'm not saying they will. They just may. Francis Mauigoa then went to the Giants. So the Giants were able to get Mauigoa and Arvell Reese in the first round. One of the best, if not the best, pass rushers in Arvell Reese. If you project, for sure, he is considered that. And one of the best, if not the best, offensive linemen in Mauigoa. Dallas got Caleb Downs. And then I had a big sigh of relief when Miami's first of 2 first-round picks for them, they took Caden Proctor. That is not the guy I wanted. And, in fact, our friend Mitch Lyons texted me at the time, and he said, I'm glad he's gone. There were 2 guys I wanted to see go off the board that allowed Detroit an option of certain players. One was Caden Proctor, who went to Miami at 11 or at 12. And then it was Kenyon Sadiq, who went to the Jets just before the Lions picked. I don't know if the Lions would have chosen him, but that's some people were speculating that. Would I have liked to have seen Detroit move up and taken a guy like Vivega Ayonye? Yes, I would have. And he went to Baltimore. That was, if people were projecting, besides Fernando Mendoza, people projecting on which player was going where, the Ayonye choice by Baltimore is probably the most commonly thought place for him because of the type of player he is and what Baltimore stands for. That's why I wanted him in Detroit. Is I wanted that to be who Detroit stood for. A player who he is, I think he's the best offensive lineman in the draft. An absolute mauler who is a physical presence, loves football, and loves finishing plays. He's got all the traits that you want in a guard. People, I'm not saying specifically in Detroit, you really start to understand how important certain positions are when you lose a guy who's really good at that position. Center's a good example, Frank Ragnow. Guard was a really good example in Kevin Zeitler. Now, we hope Tate Ratledge takes a next step, and he was pretty good last year. To his right, it'll be either Blake Miller or Larry Borum. You invest at 17th overall, you would expect him to be a starter right away. The depth on the offensive line now is super impressive, and the potential of the offensive line is super impressive. We don't know who's playing left guard, and Blake Miller should be penciled in as a starter, but he's going to have to earn that. Him going against Aiden Hutchinson in practice is going to be a lot different than him going against certain other guys in practice at Clemson or certain other guys in the ACC. But you don't draft a guy at 17 thinking he's not going to be your starter. Minnesota surprised me. I thought they were going to go with Dylan Thieneman. He's the safety out of Oregon. He went to a different team in the division in Chicago at 26. Minnesota took Florida tackle Caleb Banks, which drew a lot of hms and haws. And then the Panthers took Monroe Freeling. So I say this all the time. The Panthers taking Monroe Freeling at 19. The Lions taking Gabe Miller at 17 will be very interesting because I think those are the 2 careers that people will parallel moving forward. We'll explain on the other side. Looking forward to your feedback via the text at Sports Radio 21,000 on the Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843, or in the chat as we stream live on Facebook, X, and YouTube. Brought to you by Mitch Lyons Wealth.
Huge here for the Michigan High School Athletic Association. You can stay up to date on the latest from Lansing 24/7 at MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. The latest news, press releases, and stories connected to every high school in the state of Michigan, available for you 24/7 from the Michigan High School Athletic Association. Log on to MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. And if you're looking for archive boys and girls high school sports, MHSAA.TV. That's MHSAA.TV. 24/7, everything you need to know about high school sports in Michigan. Log on to MHSAA.com.
Hear that? That's the sound of saving a good deal more when you shop with M-Perks at Meijer. Some delicious Cosmic Crisp apples, money saved. Meijer Essential Paper Towels, that's money saved. Savings, savings, savings. Because every dollar spent is also points earned in M-Perks, which you can use to save on your next grocery trip or up to $1 off per gallon on your next tank of gas. At Meijer, we work hard to help you save a good deal more for a whole lot less. That's bringing more good to life. Exclusions apply. See mperks.com for details.
Coming up later today at 3 on the Huge Show on the Michigan Sports Network, I'll deliver huge opinions on everything you're talking about.
I think that's the thought here. You know, I've talked to Panay. That's what I'd like to do, and certainly this helps. Blake's played all right tackle, and so is Borum. You know, and like I told Blake, I said, hey, yeah, we're making this move. You got to come in and earn it, man. You know, he's got to earn that. You know, we brought in Borum for a reason too, so it's good. It only helps us.
It's Dan Campbell with WJBK Channel 2 last night on one of the many things he's told Blake Miller once that phone call was made. Miller, according to Dane Brugler of The Beast, which is on The Athletic, they remind him a little bit of Ronnie Stanley, which would be outstanding since he was a really good left tackle for Baltimore. They love his flexibility. He's in the 85th percentile in broad jump, vertical jump, and 40-yard dash among tackles at the NFL Combine. He has an 84-inch wingspan, which is really important. And when you look at his other characteristics, arm length, for example, which is what we were talking about just before the break, is at over 34 inches. 34 and a quarter inches is the arm length. And if you look at the RAS score, which is relative athletic score, out of 10, he's a 994. So that tells you something. For a guy who is, when they talk about explosive, they say he's elite. When they talk about composite speed grade based on his body weight, which is, 317, he's 6'7", 317 pounds. They consider it elite. So the athletic testing on a scale of 0 to 10 at 994 is pretty damn good. On top of that, he has a wealth of experience, 54 starts. He's tough. He missed one practice. I think Dabo Sweeney said maybe 2. So I don't know how they chart those things. But either way, he hasn't missed more than 2 practices, and that was because he had a broken wrist. Oh, my gosh. He was injured in college. Why would the Lions take him? Anyway, and he's a captain. So you don't play as many games, as many snaps, program record for number of snaps, if you're not good at that level, and you're not named a captain if you're not a good leader. And when you're doing all those things that I just mentioned, as many snaps and as many games and as many practices, that tells you about your desire and love for the game of football, not to mention the ancillary things that I just talked about that many people think aren't ancillary. So let me give you a quick example, if you don't mind. We were talking about Ruben Bain, and I was in a group of people yesterday who wanted the Lions to do whatever they could, give up future first-round picks for Ruben Bain. My comment, and he's a really good player, so don't get me wrong. At the collegiate level, he was a very good player. He put up numbers that were really impressive at Miami. You're not an All-American. You're not a Ted Hendricks Award winner if you're not a good player. Okay? You don't lead all of FBS players in total pressures, 83, including the postseason. You're not the ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and you're not one of those guys who puts up big numbers in a lot of other categories, tackles for loss, sacks, and so on. So if you're not a good player, but the big concern for him, for anybody who drafted him or thought about drafting him, is he has 30-inch arms, 30 and 7/8. So can we just round it to 31? 31 compared to a guy like Blake Miller at 34 and a quarter. That's a big discrepancy. Now, when you see that he's got the third shortest arms on record for an edge rusher since 1999, the debate, of course, is would he be worth it in the first round? That's a tough one because a lot of people thought a guy like Aaron Donald was undersized, if you recall. Coming out of Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh, a lot of people didn't want Aaron Donald because they thought he was too small to play inside. He is arguably the greatest defensive lineman of all time. I said arguably. Yes, you're going to have Reggie White fans. Yes, you're going to have Bruce Smith fans. You might have a Michael Strahan guy. You might have a guy who suggests Randy White back in the day. Rosie Greer, a Merlin Olsen, guys like that, whatever. But people were wrong, flat out wrong about Aaron Donald. Sometimes not everything about a player can be measured in numbers and statistics. Okay? So I'm trying to give Ruben Bain a little bit of that leeway. But hand fighting in the NFL, trying to convert speed into power off the edge, trying to anchor, trying to redirect a tackle, getting to leverage points, body positions, all those things, critical to be successful. Shorter arms tighten that type of margin of error for you against a bigger guy and a longer guy. So that's the reason I bring that up. And when you look at Blake Miller, he checks the boxes that I think most of us would have wanted. Before the draft, what did we hear from people constantly? They need an offensive lineman, they need an edge. And there's some guys who are available that Detroit will get today in day 2 that we'll talk about, that you'll be happy with. But you felt it's a need, right? I mean, when you lose Taylor Decker, I don't know if people felt like it should have been a left tackle or a right tackle, but either way, when you lose Taylor Decker, you've a long-time starter for this team, you feel like you've got to replace it. They're moving Penei Sewell from right tackle to left tackle. It's not a big deal. He played there at Oregon. He's so athletic and so good, it shouldn't be an issue. You were uncomfortable with Larry Borom because you felt like Miami stinks and they let this guy go, and you had never heard of him. Let's get to cut to the chase. That's it. You had never heard of him. Good tackles you hear of. Other tackles who are depth guys, you probably haven't. Now, can we make the argument that we don't follow tackles quite as closely? Yes. I would ask you, did you think the Los Angeles Rams were good last year? Andy, your answer to that would probably be yes.
I mean,
right?
yeah, yes.
Okay. Can you give me one of their tackles? You don't have to give me the right tackle. Give me one of their tackles.
I don't think I can.
Right. Warren McClendon Jr. Okay. Exactly. Okay. I mean, that's the answer. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what everybody would say. So when I say Larry Borom, people are like, oof. Because you wanted a stud, just like you wanted at the edge. And you wanted a guy of name recognition. And if you thought they were that good, why would A, Miami get rid of him? And B, why would you sign a guy just to a 1-year, $5 million contract? Fair enough? Okay.
For sure.
So now you get that position of need at right tackle. And he is everything on paper that you would hope the Lions would select because of all the intangibles that I just brought up, all the measurements that I just suggested. Okay. So a guy who is, I mean, I read a synopsis from an NFL insider, NFL.com. And this is what they wrote. They wrote, with Freeling, Mauioa, Ionye, Fano, and Delane all off the board, it was an easy choice for the Lions. Miller has been rock solid at Clemson over the last 4 seasons. Program record number of starts, program record number of snaps played. I've told you about that. Never missed a game, absent only in 1 practice, thanks to a broken bone in his wrist. At 6 3/4, we round up at 6'7", if that's all right, 317 pounds. Improved his pass protection every year at Clemson, essentially cutting his pressures allowed in half from his freshman year, 25, to his senior year, 14. Some will see his experience and steady play as an indication of him being a high floor, low ceiling prospect. But I push back for the second part of that. He's less than a year older than Freeling and Fano, and he tested well at the combine. I just gave you those numbers. If you want to look at bench press, is he strong? When you put 2 1/4 on, which is 2 big plates, It's 32 reps. It's not a record, but it's pretty damn good. That's strength. It doesn't always equate to strength in other ways on the football field, but that's what they use as a measurement. He's a good athlete who I expect to continue to develop, and I trust offensive line coach Hank Fraley to get the best out of him. As for his fit in Detroit, Miller played almost exclusively on the right side while at Clemson, and I tweeted this out last night. 95.5% of his career snaps came at right tackle. That's a comfortability type situation. 95.5%. There's no reason to move him from where he's comfortable. Penei Sewell can shift to left tackle where he started at Oregon. If all goes to plan, Sewell can help elevate Christian Mahogany or whoever starts at left guard. Miller benefits from playing next to second-year pro Tate Ratledge. Insert Cade Mays in the middle, and the Lions just might be back in business. Last year, with Graham Glasgow, Christian Mahogany, a rookie at right guard, the complaint, and an injured Taylor Decker at left tackle, the complaint about the Lions was what? We've lost our identity.
That's all you heard.
True.
Time and time again. Yep.
Yeah. Did you think that was fair? Absolutely, it was fair. A team that was used to shoving it down people's throats. A team that bullied you. People used Michigan's national championship team as an example. They looked at you and they said, we're going to run the football right now. And there's nothing you can do about it. This is what the Lions have to be. They have a new offensive coordinator in Drew Petzing. He likes to move his guards. There's no question, or his offensive lineman. No question Blake Miller can get out in space and use a big frame to get in the way of people to help his running backs, wide receivers, tight end screens, whatever. There's no question he can do that. On top of that, the Lions are a lot younger. I don't know if this means that much to you, but for a lot of people, you would like to see this being built long term.
Absolutely. I think that's a key part of it. I think that was what people liked so much about it at first. But there was a lot of age on their line before that. So,
all right. So here's what you have. You have a 25-year-old at left tackle. You have I hope will be a 24-year-old at left guard. That's Miles Frazier. You have a 27-year-old at center, unless Cade Mays gets beaten out by Juice Scruggs, which I doubt, who's also 27, I might add. You have a 25-year-old at right guard, and you have a 22-year-old at right tackle. If Blake Miller is able to win that job away from Larry Borum, who's 27. Everybody on your offensive line, the depth, nobody is older than 28, and that's Michael Neese, and I don't even know if he's going to make the team. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, that screams like continuity for a long time if they can keep it together.
You have overhauled your offensive line in a short period of time. And that right there is something I think a lot of Lions fans desperately wanted. Our phone number on the Meyer hotline is 866-838-4843. Text us Sports Radio 21,000. Let me get to some text real quick. Freddie, as always, our good friend is on point here in the morning. Let's see. A lot to get to. I give the Lions a B. Can't complain about the pick. The way I see him as a player, a 4-year veteran in the NFL signing his first big contract. What that means to me is he's a plug-and-play guy for need. Brad drafted need again when he tells you otherwise. Well, I don't know where their board is, Freddie. I don't know how they've rated players. I don't. They had needs at safety. Could have taken Dylan Thieneman. They had needs at cornerback. There's a cornerback or two there, right? They had needs at a linebacker. They had needs at edge. And they had need at tackle. So if they don't take the tackle and they take the edge, they would have drafted for need, right? I'm just trying to decipher here. If they don't take the tackle and they bring up a certain player, Malachi Lawrence, and that's the edge, did they draft for need? If they drafted Chris Johnson, who Miami took with their second first-round pick, the cornerback out of San Diego State, is that drafting for need? Who's the player they would have taken that wouldn't have been for need, number one? And number two, how would you have felt had they taken that player? So let's just say, for example, Mackay Lemon. He's a wide receiver. You would have been screaming, what the hell are you doing? You have enough wide receivers. You can marry the two. Best player available sometimes coincides with need. Because of their needs and because of the players who are available and falling, I don't understand why you would think he wasn't drafting best player available and saying that he's telling us one thing, but really saying something or but doing something other than that. It's not true at all. The guys who were taken soon thereafter, Monroe Freeling, he was a tackle. Makai Lemon, a wide receiver. Max Ianachor, he was a tackle. Akeem Messidor, an edge. I mean, if they draft edge, if they draft Messidor there, or they draft Lawrence there, you're probably telling me, well, they're drafting for need. Maybe it was both. Anyway, he says, does he have a high ceiling versus the Arizona tackle that Pittsburgh took? Thieneman safety that Chicago took. The defensive end, Malachi Lawrence, that Dallas took. I don't think so. And those were big needs too. Right. Well, this is it's hard for us to trust certain teams, players, personnel. So I'm with you on this. When you sit there and you say, okay, I trust Brad Holmes, you've trusted him in the past and you haven't always liked what he's done in certain situations. Enos Rakestraw, for example. Terrion Arnold, for example. Makai Wingo, for example. Josh Paschal, for example. So it's hard for you to trust him. You're trusting the Bears instead by reading that. You're trusting Dallas instead by reading that. You're trusting Pittsburgh. Who's earned it from you? Because we're not around Pittsburgh every single day, are we noting who their good and who their bad draft picks are? Look who they got as starting quarterback next year, unless Aaron Rodgers comes back. We'll pick that conversation up on the other side. We've been brought to you this hour by Mitch Lands Wealth. Glad you're with us on a Friday, day 2 of the NFL draft. We'll get to some possibilities coming up here on the program. Stay with us on the Michigan Sports Network.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at freddythepizzaman.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit freddythepizzaman.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI thepizzaman.com. Together, we can make a difference.
Huge here for Josh Garvey and his team at Dorn Mayhew. Now, Josh oversees the West Michigan operations. Dorn Mayhew's worldwide headquarters are in Troy, Michigan, on the east side of the state. They are one of the top accounting, CPA, and business firms in the world. They continue to grow. They can help your business with any accounting, CPA, or business need you have. And also Dorn Mayhew and Josh and the West Michigan operation, they present Talkin' Hoops with John Beilein. We do it every Tuesday on the Huge Show through the NBA Finals. So how far will the Pistons go in the playoffs? You can hear Coach Beilein, Josh Garvey, and myself every Tuesday on The Huge Show as we talk hoops, presented by one of the world's top accounting, CPA, and business firms, Dorn Mayhew. Josh Garvey oversees the West Michigan operation. Their worldwide headquarters for Dorn Mayhew are in Troy, Michigan.
Hear that? That's the sound of saving a good deal more when you shop with M-Perks at Meijer. Some delicious Cosmic Crisp apples, money saved. Meijer Essential Paper Towels, that's money saved. Savings, savings, savings. Because every dollar spent is also points earned in M-Perks, which you can use to save on your next grocery trip or up to $1 off per gallon on your next tank of gas. At Meijer, we work hard to help you save a good deal more for a whole lot less. That's bringing more good to life. Exclusions apply. See mperks.com for details.
Motown Legends. TNT. Together again. Temptation. Four Tops. Saturday night, May 9th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Tickets start at $55 and on sale now at the box office at etix.com. Saturday night, May 9th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Temps and tops together again.
Where are you watching the Tigers this year? Superfly Hayes here for Detroit Sportsnet. Sign up like the Huge Show did with the Detroit Sportsnet Tigers Wings package. Subscription info at tigers.com and MLB.com.
Back on this Friday, April 24th. Thanks for being with us here on X's and Bros. I'm Matt Shepard. Andy McDonald alongside. The Meyer hotline is 866-838-4843. Meyer brings you this hour of X's and Bros. We invite your texts at 21,000. Sports Radio 21,000. Tigers a winner yesterday. Spencer Torkelson, the hero, with a game-winning walk-off homer in the ninth. Atlanta beat the Knicks by a point and lead the series 2-1 in the NBA playoffs. Toronto blows out Cleveland to get a game. Minnesota is up a game on Denver after a win. And winners in the NHL were Carolina, Buffalo, and Colorado. Both the Canes and Avs have 3-0 series lead. The Buffalo-Boston series is 2-1 in favor of the Sabres. And speaking of all that, the NBA playoffs on DraftKings Sportsbook, the official betting partner of NBA, boosting the whole postseason. The playoffs stars are turning up round by round. Good rat song, but also a good one when it comes to DraftKings. DraftKings turning it up too, with a profit boost available every single game, every single day, from the first round all the way to the NBA Finals. New sportsbook customers, bet just $5. If your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly. That's $300 in bonus bets instantly. So we invite you to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the code HUGE so you're ready for that moment. That code is HUGE. You turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and needs some help, have them call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 years or older, Michigan only. Eligibility and restrictions do apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expires in 7 days. Keep that in mind. Minimum odds required. NBA best or NBA bet boost restrictions apply and vary when offered. Boost only applies to winnings. So you got to win. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. That's sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. This is a limited time offer. Let's hope there is no limit for Blake Miller at the right tackle position for your Lions. Suddenly, your offensive line turns from disappointment a year ago to what many will consider going into camp a strength. Brad Holmes on why at 17, and they thought about moving up, but at 17, they got their guy. Here he is.
He just checks a lot of boxes. Really high floor player. I actually was really intrigued. Obviously, he's big, he's tough, he's smart. He's a finisher. He has unbelievable football character, work ethic. I mean, everything from a culture standpoint, he fits that. That's the easy part. But his ability is the stuff that, I mean, he's athletic. He's a good athlete, and it's hard to find guys that can move like that are finishers.
So when they talk about character a lot, you don't have to worry about things, which is a good thing. You don't have to worry about him in a room, the tackle room, the offensive line room. That's good. He can't wait to learn from Penei Sewell, which is an easy thing to say. I mean, if you're a young offensive lineman, you want to follow the best. So that's an obvious. But the other thing is, look, it's hard to be durable along the offensive line. And this kid was super durable. Accountable is another word that oftentimes doesn't get used enough when it comes to certain players. And he is accountable. And he's tough. And you better be. All right? Listen, whether you like the pick or not, you're 22 years old and you're a starter for 4 years. That tells you something about it. Somebody from The Athletic, a couple of writers from The Athletic wrote this. This is about him before the draft, okay? Elite tools are all solid. Minimizes mental mistakes, maximizes what he has. He will be a top 10 to 12 right tackle right away in the league. from The Athletic.
That's pretty impressive take right there.
That's a really impressive take. Now, does that mean they're right? No. Okay. But that's a hell of a take. The other thing they write is this: the more you watch him, the more you learn about him, the more he grows on you. So all those things wrapped into his production is really impressive. Is he going to win every snap? Hell no. Can you find me an offensive lineman who wins every snap? I mean, I don't recall Anthony Munoz getting beaten very often. There are certain players, I get it. You watch him and you're like, wow, that dude is he's an absolute mauler. We have this misconception of offensive linemen that we think if you're not pancaking anybody, you're not picking them up off the ground and throwing them down and standing over them, screaming while your face is painted with eye black, I own you, that they're not all that good. And that's just not the case. I mean, really good linemen oftentimes get out in space and all they're doing is blocking a path for their running back, wide receiver, or tight end. Not every great block has to shove a guy 3 inches deep into the turf. Blake Miller is an athletic player. This offense is going to require offensive linemen who are athletic. What do we love most about Penei Sewell? And this is the thing that I think maybe gets lost a little bit. What Sewell was able to do on that right side and get out, how many times have we seen him way out in front, shoving a guy to his left or to his right, blocking a guy that allows Jahmyr Gibbs to pick up an extra 5, 6, 7 yards or so?
That's most of the clips you'd find when people wanted to talk about him, for sure.
100%. Yep. Go back and watch this dude and his tape at Clemson. That is not perfect. No tape is. If you look at all the scouting reports of every single player, I don't care if it's Fernando Mendoza, Caleb Downs, or Blake Miller, there are going to be some spots where they're like, well, here's the concern. Everyone's got a strength. Everyone's got a weakness. As good as you are at your job, Andy, you have weaknesses. As bad as I'm at my job, I do have some strengths.
This guy. You gotta be kidding me.
So via text, some people, I mean, it's okay. I if you didn't want him, I guess the question would be, who did you want? I can openly say I was hoping for Freeling, but I tweeted this out before the pick last night. I want Freeling. I wouldn't be mad at Miller, and I'm not.
Say, I wouldn't be sitting here right now, even though I said Miller, I was thinking would be the guy. I wouldn't be sitting here right now saying Monroe Freeling was a bad pick if they took him. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know how much it had to do with Freeling was a left and Miller was a right. I don't think it had anything to do with that, quite honestly, because Penei Sewell was a left and they moved him to right when he came here as a first-round draft pick.
It just seems like there's a lot of things the Lions like about Miller as a person and not just a player too, I feel like. But
yeah, and those guys put in a ton of tape and watch a ton of tape. Now, it's the same guys who watched a ton of tape on guys that perhaps you weren't as happy with. So I understand why there would be a little bit of a wondering, nodding of the head, shrugging of the shoulders, and a have to wait and see type situation. I get it. Some via text. I wish him luck. Hope it works out. But Lions should do the right thing and make Sewell the highest paid left tackle in football right now. Shep, if they drafted Bain at defensive end with those short arms, they would have had to play him versus right tackles where Hutch thrives versus when he plays left tackles. Drafting Bain would have weakened both defensive ends. Well, that's an interesting point. Bain would have been on the other side, you would assume, or Hutchinson would have been on the other side. Or my hope is anytime you're drafting somebody, and I think they will do this with Ruben Bain, and that not Detroit, of course, but when Ruben Bain goes to the NFL, and now that he's a first-round draft pick, I'm sure Tampa is going to use him in a lot of different areas. Not just over the edge, they'll probably bring him up the middle, similar to what people have done with Micah Parsons. Not that he's Micah Parsons, but similar to how he's used. We appreciate the text very much. We always welcome the feedback. The Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. Or you can join us streaming. Join us in the chat on YouTube, on X, and on Facebook, brought to you by Meyer.
Saturday night, May 23rd.
Carry on my wayward son.
Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort welcomes multi-platinum legends, Kansas. Tickets start at $60 and are on sale now at the box office or etix.com. Don't miss the best of classic rock. Kansas returns to Soaring Eagle Saturday, May 23rd. SoaringEagleCasino.com.
Make sure you listen weekly to our Moving Ferris Forward interviews with Ferris President Bill Pink and other leaders who are moving Ferris forward. Find out more about Big Rapids and Ferris and what they have to offer at ferris.edu.
If you're the largest selling comedy recording artist in history,
You might be a redneck.
Jeff Foxworthy, Friday, June 12th, inside the Soaring Eagle Entertainment Hall.
Our parents can't text and our children can't write.
Tickets start at $60 and are on sale now at the box office and online at etix.com. Laugh it up at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort Friday, June 12th with Jeff Foxworthy.
My father-in-law got his chest hair caught in his zipper.
SoaringEagleCasino.com.
Where are you watching the Tigers this year? Superfly Hayes here for Detroit Sports Net. Sign up like the Ute Show did with the Detroit Sports Net Tigers Wings package. Subscription info at tigers.com and MLB.com.
What's up, Michigan? You're listening to my good friend Shep. The Huge Show is coming up later today at 3, right here on the Michigan Sports Network.
It's important, and it resonated with us. And, you know, we had a lot of love for the guy. And then, you know, there was a lot of kind of top-tier tackles in here. And when you start watching, man, just the closer we get to the draft, I mean, his consistency and what he was able to do, man, the steadiness that he provided. And it was just, man, good production week in, week out for not just 1 year. Multiple years. So we like this guy, and we think he's got upside. He's got a high floor, and we see a ceiling too that he can get to.
Yeah, that's Dan Campbell again talking with WJBK Channel 2 in Detroit after drafting Blake Miller, the right tackle, Clemson, 17th overall. I think a lot of people understand that. They know that in order for you to play for Dan Campbell, they want you to be tough and so on and so forth. That's obvious. Look, no offense. You better be tough playing the game of football. I don't know how somebody makes a first-round draft pick and says, yeah, we like the guy, but he's not very tough. No, wrong answer.
Call him a diva or something after you draft him.
Holy crap, you know. I mean, and players have been, front office personnel have been wrong for years. All right? There's going to be more than one team that misses in this first round. The belief is that all these guys taken in the first round are going to be studs, and it's just not, percentage-wise, it's just not the case. So who's going to be right, who's going to be wrong, that remains to be seen. The one thing you want, as much as anything else, is you want a football player. And I know how some people feel about that. It's such a cliche, but it's so damn true. It really is. You need guys who love the game of football. And I use this example too often, but it's very appropriate. If you don't think there are people in their sport who have been successful, made a lot of money, played a long time, and didn't love it, you don't have to look further than Anthony Rendon, the former third baseman of the Washington Nationals, who signed a massive deal with the Angels and missed more games than he played, but made just a massive amount of money. This kid, by all accounts, is quote unquote a football player, loves to play football, and basically was born to play football. And now your offensive line, as I've mentioned, Penei Sewell at the left side, man I don't know at the left guard. I'm not automatically giving it to Christian Mahogany. I like Miles Frazier. I can't wait for that battle to unfold in training camp. So it's probably the most exciting battle I'm going to watch. Some people may say Blake Miller at the right side over Larry Borum. We'll soon find out. But I think you're going to either way, I think you're going to have a better situation at the right tackle than you would at the left guard with Christian Mahogany there. Cade Mays is the center, Tate Ratledge as your right guard. It would be interesting. What if you want depth, right, at every position? What if Mays gets hurt? Here's the other thing about this, without jinxing anything. Not that I have that power. So forget Mahogany for a minute. Sewell, Mays, Ratledge, Miller, all very what? Reliable. They've played a ton of snaps. They don't miss games. Eventually, you're going to miss practices. And that's okay. The reason you miss practice is because you've been doing this a long time. Taylor Decker at the end of last year, really over the last couple, maybe 3 years, where it was okay by Hank Fraley, the offensive line coach, Dan Campbell, and everybody else. You don't want to practice on Wednesday? We get it. We'll give you that extra day off without pads where you're just kind of standing around watching. You're part of the game plan, but you don't necessarily have to practice because you've been doing this a long time and your body has been beaten up. It is a way to save players long term. So that would be good stuff. And that was good stuff. Here's the thing. I love that Dan Campbell said he's going to have to earn it. Here's what Blake Miller said to the media after he was drafted. He said he tries to emulate Lane Johnson for his explosiveness and consistency. He tries to emulate, and I think when you look at the Lions drafting of Blake Miller, there's two words that come to mind, and both start with a C. Okay? Consistency and culture. He's really good for the culture. He was very consistent in college. You aren't playing 54. You don't have 54 starts and close to 3,800 snaps under your belt if you're not consistent. If you're inconsistent, you're going to be pulled. We'll give you another chance and so on and so forth. But consistency is vital. So those two words, I think, come to mind. Consistency and culture. Every time you talk to Brad Holmes about him, every time you talk to Dan Campbell about him, when you talk to coaches at Clemson, and when you talk to scouts, they say culture. It's one of the first things they mention about him. So that's great. So he says he tries to emulate Lane Johnson, the right tackle for Philadelphia, for his explosiveness and consistency. That's pretty damn good. Trent Williams for his confidence, swagger, and creativity. He's the left tackle for San Francisco, who just signed a 2-year extension there. And Penei Sewell for his physicality, nastiness, and finishing blocks and athleticism in the second and third level. In other words, this kid studies. The first level is at the line of scrimmage. The second level is right where the linebackers usually, and the third level is going downfield and getting them. So he also said this, owes it to his teammates being on the field when asked about those 54 games that he started, all those snaps and only one practice missed in 4 years. Said he loved the culture of the Lions franchise that came out in all the meetings with the Lions and wants to uphold that standard. Having an understanding, grasping. Look, we constantly complain, and I say we as in I think an older generation, constantly complain about guys not knowing who they are, not knowing what they've done or the people before them. And this kid sure seems to know who he is, but I love that he has recognized that there is a standard that is built now with the Lions. Last year wasn't good enough. The standard is you must be great. You must win games, and playoffs are expected. You and I can laugh about it all we want because we don't feel like we're the Pittsburgh Steelers, San Francisco 49ers, Dallas Cowboys in winning championships, and you would be right in that regard, but that doesn't mean you can't set a standard and have everybody else follow it.
No, and you'd like to think that that's what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and all them are still pumping into that locker room. Yep, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. New England established a certain standard. When guys got to New England, while Tom Brady and players like that were there, they knew what they had to do. They knew what was expected of them. The Isaiah Thomas-led Pistons had a standard. The Ben Wallace, Richard Hamilton, Chauncey Billups-led Pistons had a standard, right? In the great years of the Red Wings, there was a standard when you got to Detroit. I tell this story often, but it's worth repeating. When Dominic Hasek came to Detroit, I remember interviewing him at his locker. At old Joe Louis Arena, when you'd walk in, you turn left, his locker was the first one. And I remember asking him, what have you noticed about being here compared to where you were? And if you're looking from his locker, if you're sitting on the stool from his locker, right here at about 11 o'clock was the weight room. And guys, after practice and after games, every single day, and I covered them a lot, guys are on the treadmill. Guys are lifting weights. Guys are doing on the bike. They're doing extras. And Dominic Hasek told me the standard that has been set here, it's hard to walk out those doors without doing something extra like those guys are doing. That's the standard. Well, the Lions have built something similar, and Blake Miller recognizes it. I love that. And when people asked him about his Ironman streak, 54 straight games, he said, at the end of the day, if I'm able to play, I think I owe it to my teammates to be on the field. There's so many people in every organization that put in so much work. I owe it to them to be available and pay it forward. You want character? You want consistency? When you have that mindset, that's what you get. I just mentioned the Red Wings and Dominic Hasek and what he noticed about the Steve Yzerman-led Red Wings on the ice. Steve Yzerman now leads that organization in the front office. He had his end-of-the-season meeting yesterday and talked to the media. We'll play some of that and get your thoughts on that when we come back on X's and Bros, brought to you this hour by Meyer right after this.
Saturday night, May 23rd.
Carry on my wayward son.
Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort welcomes multi-platinum legends, Kansas. Tickets start at $60 and are on sale now at the box office or etix.com. Don't miss the best of classic rock. Kansas returns to Soaring Eagles Saturday, May 23rd. SoaringEagleCasino.com.
How would you like to watch the Pistons in the playoffs on the biggest TV in Michigan? Well, you can get a huge deal and also get the biggest TV at your local ABC Warehouse store. You can shop online right now at abcwarehouse.com. They have locations all across Michigan. So if you want to watch the Pistons in the playoffs on the biggest TV in your neighborhood, go to your local ABC Warehouse store or shop online at abcwarehouse.com.
Motown Legends, TNT, together again. Temptation. Four Tops, Saturday night, May 9th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Tickets start at $55 and on sale now at the box office and etix.com. Saturday night, May 9th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Temps and tops together again.
Make sure you listen weekly to our Moving Ferris Forward interviews with Ferris President Bill Pink and other leaders who are moving Ferris forward. Find out more about Big Rapids and Ferris and what they have to offer at ferris.edu. Coming up later today at 3 on The Huge Show on the Michigan Sports Network, I'll deliver huge opinions on everything you're talking about.
the Shepard family are very disappointed with the way the season played out. He continues to be extremely supportive of what we're trying to do here. We intend to have further conversations about our team and about our organization in the very near future.
Wings general manager Steve Yzerman yesterday. A few things about I just wanted to shift gears a little bit from a lot of NFL talk, a lot of draft talk, to just some Red Wings things and things that I noticed at that press conference. Not that I was upset with anything they said. It just, rarely do I do this, but I'm sitting there watching it and I'm talking to myself out loud. So, for example, people asked him about, are there going to be any major shakeups, players, front office, staff, whatever. It sure didn't seem like he was leaning that way. I don't want people fired per se. There has to be an accountability. If you are bringing in your NFL scouting department or NHL scouting department, every department has a college scouting department and a professional scouting department, because the college scouting department is out there looking at college players who would be good draft picks, but also, and those guys aren't even in college yet. Most of them, a lot of them are 18 years old. That's the draft age. But you're also looking at unsigned free agents. Okay, so you're tracking kids, man. I bet you they're looking at kids who are 13 years old, 13, 14, and just seeing where they're going, where they're headed. All right. So seeing that, and then by the time they get 18, is he worthy of a draft pick? Carter Mazur's a first-round draft pick. All right. They draft him at 18. You don't know what you're going to get by the time they're 22. Now, there are exceptions to the rules. There are certain players where it's mind-blowing how good they are. Macklin Celebrini, of course. Matthew Schaefer, of course. Even certain guys like Dylan Larkin was fast-tracked. All right, Jack Eichel, fast-tracked. I'm not saying you're going to go out there and you're going to find the next Connor McDavid, all right? But I do believe that your NHL scouting department, which looks at possible free agents and guys like Justin Falk, who you traded for, to give you a reason on why he might be a good fit or why he might not fit certain different, people. So Falk was one of them, as we mentioned, and I actually liked that pickup, but it was just, you give up a first-round draft pick, you expect high-level stuff, all right? So it doesn't sound like they're going to change a lot. The second-line center has been a constant discussion about the Red Wings for the last 10 years. Ever since Dylan Larkin has been part of the Red Wings, people have wondered about a second-line center. Yzerman admitted that position, the center position, needs to be much better. Again, he's saying the obvious. Look, somebody asked him a question, he answered it. I respect that. The problem I have with it is, dude, that's your job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Your job is to find that, and you haven't been able to do that for 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, especially
Why?
the last 3 where you gave him some leeway at first, and then maybe not being as competitive. But now it's like, okay, man, like at some point you got to get somebody that's ready at this level to play that position. You can't keep selling us that the guy down in Grand Rapids is going to be the guy to come up and be the next guy behind him, or that Andrew Kopp is good enough for whatever it might be.
Right. I am. This is all due respect to the Grand Rapids Griffins, who I'm rooting on heavily, but I am tired of hearing about how great Grand Rapids is when it doesn't translate to the next level.
100%. If you're not close to it, people are around here, it's like, if you're living in Detroit and you're dealing with that year after year, you're not thinking about what the guys are doing down here in Grand Rapids. I mean, that's just
Stop
always want
telling me.
You always want your prospects to do well, but like you can't at the end of the day. Like winning means something. I think winning together, that group winning together, does mean something. But
I think so too.
Are we all gonna wait? 5-6 years where they'd hopefully all be playing together up here in the NHL? No, nobody wants to wait that long. How long?
No, and they shouldn't have to.
Amen
and
to
instead
that.
of talking about certain guys, I mean, are we going to see Amadeus Lombardi, a 4th-round draft pick, a guy who had a decent season? I think he was top 5 in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, he had some injuries. I mean, he overall love his
Are we
hands.
going to see him?
But yeah,
because he's a center. That's the only reason I bring him up. He played 47 games. He's a center. Are we going to see him? I don't know. His name hasn't been mentioned.
No, they don't even
those,
they don't even really talk about him. And I watch a lot of games down here in Grand Rapids, and he's one of the key parts of what makes them go here. Like truthfully,
but who's the best? Like, is the number 2 center for the Wings next year going to be Sheldon Dries? No, it's not. But you know who it could be? It could be Vinny Trocheck. It could be a player like that.
I mean, they've got so many guys down here in Grand Rapids right now that they don't, I understand making trades is harder than just you and me putting it on paper, but they have so many guys down here in Grand Rapids right now. They're going to have a hard time deciding who to even play in the playoffs. You'd think that maybe you could give up some of those guys to get something, with draft picks. Obviously, they kind of did that with Justin Falk a little bit, but you'd like to see something in the offseason when, it's more expected, I guess.
I would like to see. I'm not a believer that you make trades for trade's sake. All right. But something's got to be done to mix it up.
Yeah, I don't think it's even for trade's sake at this point. Like you need another center. It's been obvious for a long time.
There's no doubt. And if you went out and got Rob Thomas, okay, a guy who, and now granted, he's the number 1 center for St. Louis. He's a former 1st-round pick, okay, but he's only 26 years old. If you went out and you traded for him, he would immediately upgrade your center position, and your top 2 lines would be so much better, and then you would move guys down a notch. So, for example, not that I would necessarily say you got to keep him, but Andrew Kopp as a 3rd-line center is a hell of a lot better as a 2nd-line center.
Yeah, it'd be great if he was a 3rd-line center, I think.
Right. Now, you got to give something up. What are you willing to give up? Is it, we've said this almost ad nauseum, is it so important that Michael Brandsegg-Nygaard stay with the Red Wings organization, a former 1st-round draft pick, and a guy who had 20 goals for Grand Rapids, but at times did not look very impactful for the Wings? I don't know. All right. But I do know this: the constant belief of counting on Carter Mazur, Brandsegg-Nygaard, Sheldon Dries, other players like that down in Grand Rapids is weighing on people.
100%.
How much longer do I have to wait for Austin Watson? Okay,
Right.
I'm bringing up certain names. It doesn't matter because nobody has proven at that level, even though they're good. You got to be good to even play in the AHA. The AHL is a really good league, and do what they've done this year. Kudos to them. Take your, tip your hat. All those cliches. No one is that good where they're going to come up and make a difference in the top 6 forwards. Otherwise, they'd be here already.
No, it's nothing against a lot of those players you just mentioned. Honestly, it's just they're not going to come up and make that difference. I mean, Austin Watson. That's way past it. Michael Brandsegg-Nygaard deserves more time. He hasn't even been around for that long. It's like that's the difference. The Red Wings need somebody who's pro ready. That's just what it is. You gotta. That's where you're talking about the pro scouting department. I think you gotta rely on somebody in that department to make the right decision and not just trade for a trade and get the right guy to come in and make a difference. And we haven't seen that.
And he sure looks like he's a good player. Brandsegg-Nygaard looks like he's going to be a good player. All right. You're going to have to give up something to get something. And I like guys who are proven. Rob Thomas is proven. I don't know what it would take to get him. Okay. Because if you're St. Louis, why would you give up your best player? Maybe it's because they're thinking, hey, we've got to do something to shake it up too. I don't know. All All right. I'm not going to claim to know the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts, and the philosophy of the St. Louis Blues. I just know that's a guy that you could pigeonhole as a possible fit here and figure out what it would take to get him. Because you can't get to the stuff that we've just been talking about without cracking some eggs. And Steve Yzerman has admitted, and you'll hear this right here, they need better players all around. They need better players in general. Here he is.
I don't think I'm just going to sit and hope for the best. You know, as an organization, again, I'm very disappointed how this season played out. Throughout the course of it, you know, there was a lot of things to be excited about. Seeing some of the younger faces come into the lineup, say maybe the 3-quarter poll, we're generally pretty positive, and now we sit here today in the same spot we have for the last 7 years. It's you know, again, it need to take some time, and I'm sure my conversations and going back to it, yes, I speak with Chris regularly throughout the course of the season, and he's on top of everything. He's aware of everything that's going on. I intend to do my job to the best of my ability to do this job, to address the areas that need to, and intend to see this through.
That's not surprising. And it's not surprising that he talks with owner Chris Ilitch quite a bit. I can tell you, just based on my experience with that organization, that the scouting reports and the player reports from the entire minor league, from Lakeland through the Tigers, from Toledo through the Red Wings, hits Chris Ilitch's desk. How much he dives into it, I don't know. I haven't necessarily asked him about that, but I can tell you this: he's aware of certain players. He's aware of certain minor league players, and he's absolutely aware of specific players in Grand Rapids, maybe Toledo as well. Probably doesn't dive that deep, even though he gets the reports. But there's no doubt that's their daily reports. How is this guy doing? That's what coaches do. Coaches and managers in the minor leagues, excuse me, are putting together those type of reports on what they're noticing about certain players. It can be really quick and simple, but that's what they're delivering to their bosses. AJ Hinch gets reports on everybody from Toledo and Erie and West Michigan and Lakeland on a regular basis. So it's not surprising for me at all. The problem I have is that, and Steve Yzerman has said, look, we need better players. You're the one in charge of getting better players. How do you do that? How, and for him to say that he and Chris Draper would oftentimes say, we're overperforming. If you're overperforming, remember there was a time where they were number 1 in the East, and we were giving them all kinds of flowers, and for good reason. And then they crapped the bed. It got us to thinking, you know, when are we deceived? When is it we think, okay, this team's good enough? If he and Draper are noticing certain things, you know what they were noticing? The 5-on-5 and how bad they are 5-on-5. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how you fix that. I really don't. I don't know many people who do. How do you fix 5-on-5? It's not so simple. You get an idea on power play. You get an idea on penalty kill. Why aren't guys performing in a 5-on-5 basis? That's something that Steve Yzerman and company have to figure out. But we've thought they would have to figure that out for a long time, and they haven't done it. You talk about red flags during a season. How about red flags in an off season? How about red flags at the trade deadline 2 years ago? How about red flags in general that have questioned people or made people question your decision-making? Derek Lalonde, how did that work out? Certain players you've acquired, how did that work out? Why is Alex Lyon winning a playoff game for Buffalo, but in Detroit he's not playing?
I think one of the things a lot of people are questioning, even in the 5-on-5, is just kind of the toughness in the board play. I mean, the Red Wings just don't seem tough enough along the board sometimes, you know, to keep it going. And that's where I think people are struggling to find that in the organization right now. And that's
so. Let me ask you this question, Andy. If Steve Yzerman saw red flags, and he admitted so much, He and Chris Draper
Oh,
would
yeah.
talk. They would watch games. They saw.
He's at that point for sure. That press conference was, yeah.
Okay,
definitely
so
like that yesterday.
if he saw some red flags along the way, and that we had to be more realistic, people like me who was talking them up, if we have to be more realistic, why did he give up a first-round pick for Justin Falk?
Exactly. That makes it start to feel like desperation just to get there. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like,
And if you're
that's what
willing
he
to
was
give
so
up
against.
a first-round pick for Justin Falk, and you don't know what that first-round pick is, you don't know who the player is, there's no identification to the player yet, why wouldn't you be willing to give up former first-round picks who you've watched already, haven't made the impact you thought they would, for a player you already know is good?
Couldn't agree with you more. That's exactly it. I feel like everybody feels that way right now. Like, why can't you get rid of some of these guys? Like, are you that attached to some of these players that you can't make a trade and get somebody better on your roster right now? I think that's where a lot of people are confused. Like, why are we still being sold the same thing year in and year out?
I also got a sense, I don't know if you did, there's not going to, first of all, he's not going anywhere.
No, he's
He didn't
not.
say-
Absolutely
okay,
not. Based on
he
that
didn't say-
conversation, the bite that we just
Yeah.
played, he's 100% staying in Detroit.
Yeah, he's saying things that somebody in his position who's worried about their job isn't saying those things. First of all, second of all, it would not surprise me one bit if they had the difficult conversation where Chris Ilitch said, "Look, it's mandate time. I love you like a brother, but it's mandate time. I respect you as a hero in this town. It's mandate time.
I agree.
You have to win next year. Otherwise, we have to make changes."
I would not be shocked at all about that.
Okay, so that wouldn't surprise me one bit. There's not going to be any changes to the coaching staff. All right. Sometimes when things are unchanged for an extended period of time, sometimes you need to change them. All right. So were there some things that bothered me? Yes. Were there some things that left me encouraged? I suppose. I don't give a crap about press conferences. I really don't. I don't care if a player stands there before me and says, I'm going to die for the coach. I'm going to die for the quarterback. Francis Mauioa said that last night. What do you have to say to your quarterback in Cleveland? I'm going to die for you, man. I'm telling you, I'm going to die for you. Stop. Let's be careful. All right. I don't care what you're saying in a microphone. I don't care how you look at the podium. I don't care what you're wearing. I don't care if you have a pencil in your ear or you have enthusiasm unknown to mankind. It doesn't matter to me. You know what matters? On the field.
Yeah.
I want to see what you do to put together a different team next year. And if you're going to go to camp in Traverse City and it's going to be, this guy's a holdover and this guy's a holder, but there's one new face, then people are going to be pissed, and rightfully
Gonna
so.
lose their mind.
They're going to lose their mind. They got to have a big summer. It's got to be a really important summer. Jim Miller, the former quarterback in the National Football League, who used to host a really good show on Moving the Chains on NFL Network or NFL Radio, will join us at 8:35. Super excited for that. Hope you can stick around for that. Just a reminder right now, the NBA playoffs are here. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, boosts the whole postseason. Playoff stars start to turn things up. Round by round, DraftKings turns it up too, with a profit boost available every single game day from first round all the way to the NBA Finals. New sportsbook customers bet $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. It's really easy. Use the code HUGE, and you're ready for the moment. Turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets, and if your bet wins, in partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. And if you know someone who has a gambling problem, wants some help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 years or older, Michigan only. Eligibility restrictions do apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. NBA Bet Boost restrictions apply and vary when offered. Boost only applies when you win. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. This is a limited time offer. We're back after this.
Mitch Lyons here, founder of Mitch Lyons Wealth, where we create your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement. I'm here with Tiger legend Kirk Gibson, who we are proud to support and partner with on the newly opened Kirk Gibson Center for Parkinson's Wellness.
Thanks, Mitch. We appreciate your support, and we are excited to have recently opened the center in Farmington Hills. It provides exercise therapy and educational programs that are helping the Parkinson's community, just like Mitch Lyons Wealth helps improve the quality for their clients' retirements. This center helps improve the quality of life for people with Parkinson's.
And Gibby, the best part of all is that access to the center is available to the Parkinson's community free of charge, right?
That's right, absolutely free of charge for people with Parkinson's and their care partners.
You hit a couple of the most famous home runs in Major League history, Gibby, but I feel that your greatest hit will be the positive impact that Kirk Gibson Center is making in the fight against Parkinson's.
Mitch, since my diagnosis, I get up every day and focus on winning that day. This center encourages others to do the same.
Awesome, Gibby. To learn more, go to kirkgibsoncenter.org.
Huge here for the Michigan High School Athletic Association. You can stay up to date on the latest from Lansing 24/7 at MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. The latest news, press releases, and stories connected to every high school in the state of Michigan, available for you 24/7 from the Michigan High School Athletic Association. Log on to MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. And if you're looking for archive boys and girls high school sports, MHSAA.TV. That's MHSAA.TV. 24/7, everything you need to know about high school sports in Michigan. Log on to MHSAA.com.
can slug. You know, obviously we can be streaky too, and slug does do that when you're feels really good when you connect. It's obviously can be challenging when the other side takes away from it, but it brings a whole new element. And this is a guy who's moved down in the order a little bit with Dane, with Kevin coming on this team, and just lengthens our lineup and provides a huge threat of homers at the bottom. So I'm proud of him because it's mentally for him, you know, he's getting a lot of questions, he's getting a lot of doubt, but never internal, never by us, never by his teammates, and certainly not by him.
So AJ Hinch, it's tough to get rid of the outside noise. It just is. I mean, it's a really hard thing when reporters are constantly coming up to you and asking you. He's talking about Spencer Torkelson in the game-winning homer that he hit yesterday. This is just me. I'm not saying you got to agree with me here, but the thing I respect most about a lot of baseball players is because of the mental toll that sport takes on you, not the physical toll.
Every single day for how many days, man? It's a lot.
But it's not just, yeah, absolutely. And it's failure every day.
Exactly. Like when you're in a rut, you're in a rut in that sport.
Yeah.
You don't, I mean,
but
yeah, it's
but even when you're playing well, like remember, we used this example, Andy, earlier this year. Kevin McConaughey in his first 2 games was unbelievable. People were all excited. In his last game, he went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. A young guy in his third game, I should say, his third game against San Diego, the last game of the series, 0 for 4, 3 punch-outs. A lot of guys will look at that and they're like, oh, my God, you know, they get overwhelmed because they failed. He literally failed 4 times, 3 times an embarrassing failure from a strikeout standpoint, right? Nobody wants to strike out. At least you wouldn't hope so, unless it's Riley Green saying something stupid. But anyway, you sit there and you go, wow, how is he going to respond? Look at how we responded right after. Really impressively. You are not, you make an error. Can you play over it? You make a strikeout during a situation that your team desperately needed you. Can you handle that? You're in a slump, 1 for 26. Can you bust out of it? You've got people asking you time and time again. Nobody else has to go through with this. There's nobody you know who's in sales who missed a sale, and then every player, his boss may say, what happened? How did you screw that up? But there aren't people around constantly asking you. He's not walking through a cubicle aisle and everybody's standing up and saying, put their possible client on hold saying, hey, man, what happened in that sale? How'd you blow that? Nobody's doing that. Everybody's doing that to these guys.
Amen to that.
So to get through it mentally is really challenging. And to wake up in the morning and not, or to even go to bed and not think about it is really hard. You wake up in the morning, you're like, man, is this good for my health? The hardest thing to do is have a short memory in life. One of the hardest things. That's hard to do for a baseball player.
Yeah, and I love when people give you the, oh, but they make this much money. Like they should still be human. It's absolutely crazy.
We never say that about an actor who makes a crappy movie.
Right. Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that? Kevin Costner, Waterworld. Never saw it, but I heard it just absolutely stunk. How did he get $20 million for that? Anybody asking him about that? Nope. He cashes the check. The movie flops at the box office. He gets another gig. Athletes, it's pretty constant. I go to a concert and David Lee Roth is too drunk on whiskey and he forgets the words, ain't talking about love. I can't get up and interview him and say, what the hell are you doing? I don't appreciate this. I spent a lot of money here at Joe Louis Arena. My friend and I were looking forward to this concert and you're drunk on stage. What are you doing? You can't do that.
A great example.
But it's a true story.
It is a true story. Okay, I was going to ask.
It's absolutely a true story. We're like, what the hell's going on here? You know, David, I know the words. I'm singing it before you're finishing it. It's awful. Eddie was great. Alex was fine. Michael was fantastic. David stinks. Anyway, you get to that point, right? And you're like, what's going on here? Athletes have to do that all the time. So I really respect when athletes can fight their way through that. I think it shows a lot of character, shows you about something. So good for Spencer Torkelson, good for the Tigers. It's a nice win over the Brewers. They're in Cincinnati tonight. Here's the Mitch Lyons Wealth poll question. How confident are you? I'm sorry. Grade the Lions pick of Blake Miller, A, B, C, or wanted someone else. Vote as often as you want at XB Mornings. Round 2 is tonight, and we're going to talk with Jim Miller at 8:35. Jim Miller, who used to host Moving the Chains on XM Radio, on NFL Radio, former NFL quarterback, color analyst, Chicago Bears, has a long resume, knows what the hell he's talking about. We'll talk about, the surprise pick in the first round, who did the best, who was the worst, if you can say there is a worst pick in the round, and his thoughts on the Lions, as well as today, round 2. Detroit will have the 18th pick of the day today. 18th pick. Okay. Number 50 overall. I know that's how front office people go. But today it's going to be San Francisco. I don't think San Francisco had a first-round pick, did they? I thought they traded out. So I think this is going to be the first pick for San Francisco. It's also going to be the first pick for the Buffalo Bills because they traded out, but they're going to pick third today. It's San Francisco, then the Cardinals, then the Bills, Raiders, Giants again. Look for them to get a wide receiver there. The Texans, the Browns, the Chiefs, Bengals, Saints, Dolphins, Jets, Ravens, Bucks, Colts, Falcons, Vikings, Lions. That's how it goes. All right, today. Who's available? Some big names. So you can check off 18 names. If you want to go by need, go right ahead. I'm not sure exactly how you're going to look at it. Jermod McCoy is available. He's the kid who missed all of last year with an ACL at Tennessee. Some consider him the best cover corner in the draft. And before you go, wow, but he tore his ACL. I got a friend of mine who played in the NFL, tore his ACL, came back, had a big year the following year. McCoy, even though he missed last year, still ran, a 4.38 40? So he can get it done. There's no question. Denzel Boston, he's the wide receiver from Washington. You don't necessarily need that. There's 2 names that'll probably be gone before you pick. Another guy, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, he's the safety out of Toledo. He'll be gone. There's 3 names. Caden McDonald, he's the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. He'll be gone. T.J. Parker, the edge rusher from Clemson. He'll be gone. There's 5 names right there. So who might be there for us? It's a good question. Will Jacob Rodriguez drop? He's the linebacker from Texas Tech. Some people really like him. Zion Young is considered a top 10 at his position, edge rusher from Missouri. He played in some big games, obviously, in the SEC and was very productive. That's a possibility. Cassius Howell, who isn't a real big guy, but has got great twitch off the edge from Texas A&M. He could be available. Avion Terrell, the cornerback from Clemson, could be available. I'm not big on our Mason Thomas. He's the edge from Oklahoma. He might be there. Here's my hope. Let me give you 2 names. I'll give you 3 names. So one of them is D'Angelo Pons. He's the cornerback from Indiana, but he's really undersized. So that scares me a little bit, but I think he'll be there. That's a possibility. It's not necessarily who I pick, but he's a really good cover corner. You know how I feel about Gabe Akis. He's the edge rusher from Illinois. He's about 6'3.5", 250 pounds. But watch for the kid out of Penn State, Dennis Sutton. Dennis Sutton. He's the edge, and he is a monster. He's 6'5", 260 pounds. He's quick, he's big, he's strong. But he's a little raw. So that's one name I want you to watch instead of, and in addition to Akis. And then, of course, you got Derek Moore. There are a lot of wide receivers people think will go in this area in this second round. So Detroit will have a chance to get the edge if you feel like the edge is there, or maybe a corner. The best safety still available will not be there. McNeil-Warren will not be there. He'll be gone early in the draft, I would guess, or early in the round. We'll talk more about it on the other side. Get to the final results of the poll question from yesterday. Jim Miller joins us, bottom of the hour, 8:35 here on X's and Bros, brought to you by Avello Airlines and AvelloAir.com.
In the Den with Dan Dickerson.
Hey, Tigers fans, a new baseball season means a new season on Michigan's favorite island destination, Mackinac Island. Baseball, spring, and Mackinac Island. Things that return every year, reminding us what a great state we live in. Shake off the winter blahs, take in a game, and plan your trip to America's top summer destination, MackinacIsland.org. The Tigers have played so many series against National League teams to start the season. I really had to check to make sure the Tigers are still in the American League. The Tigers start a 6-day road trip with 3 games in Cincinnati tonight, and then they head on to Atlanta for 3. By the end of this road trip, the Tigers will have played 7 of the first 10 series against National League teams, and they will have played almost half of the 46 interleague games on the schedule. The other oddity, the National League is crushing the American League so far in interleague play with an 83-57 record. The Tigers are one of 3 American League teams that have a winning record against the National League.
Motown Legends, TNT, together again. Temptation. More Tops, Saturday night, May 9th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Tickets start at $55 and on sale now at the box office at etix.com. Saturday night, May 9th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Temps and Tops together again.
Where are you watching the Tigers this year? Superfly Hayes here for Detroit Sportsnet. Sign up like the Huge Show did with the Detroit Sportsnet Tigers Wings package. Subscription info at tigers.com and MLB.com.
Coming up later today at 3 on the Huge Show on the Michigan Sports Network, I'll deliver huge opinions on everything you're talking about.
He's played a lot of football. He's solid. He's steady, man. He can do it all. He plays physical in the run game. Freaking smart, tough, edgy, got length, moves well. We feel like this guy can come in and compete and help us with the O-line.
I love that. Freaking smart.
It's just that classic Dan Campbell right there, you know.
It is. Yeah. Last night I was tweeting about this, but I tweeted this out 2 days ago. The last time the Pistons won a playoff game at home was 2008. That year they picked 17th. That year they chose an offensive tackle, Gosder Shirless.
Wow.
The other night they won a playoff game at home. They had the 17th pick, and they picked an offensive tackle. Now, the difference is Gosder Shirless was a left tackle at Boston College. He played right tackle in Detroit. I saw him at the Game Above Sports Bowl last December. Had to go up to him and say, hey, I covered you your entire career. Oh, yeah, I remember you. So we started talking a little bit. He's a really good guy, but he didn't work out as a first round pick. The difference there is he was a left tackle, moved to right. Maybe, I mean, Blake Miller has a lot more starts, a lot more credentials on why he was chosen. You trust the administration a little bit more. And he has played, 96.5% of his snaps in college at the right tackle position. So that's really good, I was not a fan of the Rams pick. I don't see how it helps them in 2026. 15 starts by Ty Simpson doesn't do it for me. Somebody responded. The Idaho's chairman of the board said, preach, worry about quarterback legacy later. Get a player now that can help you win a Super Bowl this year. I had tweeted out, crap, there goes the player I wanted for the Lions. That was when Baltimore chose Vavega Ionye. And other people said, agree, but Miller's a great fit. This is a very good pick. Let's see. Somebody had said they don't care about the Rams. I'm glad it doesn't help them for this year. Yeah, I was just making a comment about, what's going on. I did like what the Cowboys did. I thought that was really impressive. And people agreed with me there. People also agreed with me when I tweeted out Miami takes Caden Proctor at 12. I'm not mad at that at all. And then, like I said, a lot of people liking that I was missing out on Ionye. Then, when you start telling about the player you really like or the player that they have in Blake Miller, people like to see that kind of stuff. Now, I would also remind people, when you look at, there are certain organizations that immediately scream respect. I think one of those organizations is the Philadelphia Eagles, right? I don't think it's the Carolina Panthers. Not yet, anyway. Although they've been to a Super Bowl and the Lions haven't. The Panthers took Monroe Freeling 2 picks after Detroit chose Miller. So with that said, there are going to be comparisons. Blake Miller and Monroe Freeling, I think, are 2 guys who will be linked moving forward from a Lions standpoint, not from a Carolina standpoint. You always look at the guy you could have had. The Panthers couldn't have had Blake Miller. He was already gone. If they want to compare Monroe Freeling to Max Ionachor, then that's different because they both play the same position. Ionachor went 2 picks after Monroe Freeling. Or maybe they want to compare him to Caleb Lomu. Oh, we could have had Caleb Lomu. That's the guy I wanted. How about this? Why don't I just compare them moving forward in their careers? I wanted Monroe Freeling. I'm not mad at Blake Miller. But moving forward, I'm going to monitor Monroe Freeling and how well he plays for Carolina and measure it against Blake Miller. If you look at the 2 picks, and I get this comparison, and quite honestly, if you're people at Carolina, you might be looking with a little envy if you base it on their collegiate careers. So, for example, Blake Miller had 54 starts. Monroe Freeling had 21. Blake Miller starts 54 to 17. Blake Miller had 17 starts. I was looking at games played. Games played was 54 for Miller, 21 for Monroe Freeling. Okay. Both of them started every game last year. The number of sacks allowed a year ago. Monroe Freeling, none. Blake Miller, 2. One of them, by the way, to Ruben Bain. Monroe Freeling was the second team All-SEC. Blake Miller was a 2-time first team All-ACC, for what that's worth. And, of course, as we mentioned, he has a career number of snaps, a record at Clemson. I'm not sure about Monroe Freeling. Both men are 6'7", between 315 and 320 pounds. I'm not next to them on the scale, so I'm not sure. But here's the traits, at least based on if you read the Beast and you read Schrager and Kuiper and McShay and all the well-known Joel Klatt and all this other stuff. Although Joel Klatt yesterday, I was listening to his podcast and he said, this is obvious. You got to take Caden Proctor at 17. Fortunately, he wasn't there. I don't think it's obvious. I don't think it's obvious at all. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that people who played the game at the highest level, call the game at the highest level, don't recognize certain blatant deficiencies in players that would scare anybody away. We were talking about red flags for the Red Wings earlier in the show. A red flag for any player, and Mitch Lyons has brought this up with us on more than one occasion because he played at the highest level and played with a guy at Lincoln Kennedy who tipped the scales at over 400 pounds one time in training camp. If Caden Proctor doesn't have the discipline away from the field, that is a red flag. We're not talking about me. I don't have discipline to say no to chocolate-covered peanuts. I have a hard time turning down peanut butter M&Ms. When my wife makes brownies, I'm going to eat them. I'm not playing tackle in the National Football League. Caden Proctor can't do that. He's got to sit with a big plate of grilled chicken and broccoli. And he's got to put a lot of calories. He's 6'7", 352 pounds. How many calories do you think he needs? 4,000 to keep things going? Probably. The easiest way to 4,000 calories is usually sugar. He's got to say no to it. I don't have to worry about that. I mean, I do, but I'm not trying to impress anybody anymore. Anyway, so I was surprised at why Joel Klatt had him. I'm glad Detroit got Blake Miller, or maybe I'm just as glad that they didn't get Caden Proctor. Miller's a 4-year starter, day one as a freshman. A proven pass protector, low sack numbers, okay? Strong anchor, functional strength, above average athlete, and a right tackle. Monroe Freeling, elite athlete, explosive in testing, natural left tackle traits, fluid movement, high ceiling, limited starting experience, still developing technique. That's what I'm summarizing. People put together. If you are looking for grit, Miller ranked in the top 1% in the Lions' internal grit metrics, okay? A Dan Campbell guy. Immediate starter versus development, it's Miller gets the check. Experience cap because of starts, Miller gets the check. If you're looking at reliability, Miller gets the check. If you're looking at a right tackle fit because Dan Campbell wants Sewell at left tackle, Miller fits the check. And if you're looking at floor to ceiling, I would probably go with Freeling with a higher ceiling. Basically, what we're saying is the Lions drafted, not conservatively, but certainty. When we come back, we are certain we're going to visit with Jim Miller. Looking forward to that. He joins us on the other side on X's and Bros, brought to you by Avello Airlines and AvelloAir.com.
Hear that? That's the sound of saving a good deal more when you shop with M-Perks at Meijer. Some delicious Cosmic Crisp apples, money saved. Meijer Essential Paper Towels, that's money saved. Savings, savings, savings. Because every dollar spent is also points earned in M-Perks, which you can use to save on your next grocery trip or up to $1 off per gallon on your next tank of gas. At Meijer, we work hard to help you save a good deal more for a whole lot less. That's bringing more good to life. Exclusions apply. See mperks.com for details.
Huge here for the Michigan High School Athletic Association. You can stay up to date on the latest from Lansing 24/7 at MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. The latest news, press releases, and stories connected to every high school in the state of Michigan, available for you 24/7 from the Michigan High School Athletic Association. Log on to MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. And if you're looking for archive, boys and girls, high school sports, MHSAA.TV. That's MHSAA.TV. 24/7, everything you need to know about high school sports in Michigan. Log on to MHSAA.com.
If you're the largest selling comedy recording artist in history,
You might be a redneck.
Jeff Foxworthy, Friday, June 12th, inside the Soaring Eagle Entertainment Hall.
Our parents can't text and our children can't write.
Tickets start at $60 and are on sale now at the box office and online at etix.com. Laugh it up at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, Friday, June 12th with Jeff Foxworthy.
My father-in-law got his chest hair caught in his zipper.
SoaringEagleCasino.com.
35 after the hour. Welcome back, X's and Bros, Monday through Friday, 6 until 9. Streaming live on YouTube, on X, and on Facebook as well. We always welcome you on the Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. And we welcome your text via Sports Radio 21,000. Jim Miller was an outstanding college football player at Michigan State. He was a 6th-round draft pick by the Chicago Bears in the National Football League. Of course, starred at Waterford Kettering High School here in Metro Detroit, where he was a captain of his team, a multi-year captain. And at Michigan State was a starter there for 3 years. Okay. In fact, a guy who led them to a Liberty Bowl win over Louisville in his senior season. Okay. Played in the Senior Bowl and went on and was drafted by Chicago and ended up being a pretty damn good quarterback at the National Football League level. I've always enjoyed his commentary, and I don't say that just because he's here. I say that because I mean it. I learned an awful lot listening to him. Now, he also does Chicago Bears preseason, which is really key because he knows this division. If you want to follow him on Twitter, you can do that at Jim Miller _NFL. And he joins us here on X's and Bros. Jim, it's great to visit with you. We appreciate it. Always appreciate your professionalism and your insight. First things first, regarding the National Football League first-round draft, who do you think had the best night, and who was your biggest surprise?
Well, you got to believe the Jets. The Jets, they get a lot of key components for them, probably the best tight end in the draft. And, obviously, when you look at their head coach, former Detroit Lion defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn's under a lot of pressure. So they've got to have instant contributors right away. So to draft 3 first-round players that probably already are going to step in, be instant contributors, I thought they had a good night. Biggest surprise, I think, like anybody else, I think Ty Simpson probably should have returned to Alabama. Here, the Rams, select him as high as what they selected him. I think a lot of people thought a team would have traded back into the first round, like what the Giants did last year to pick up Jackson Dart. Maybe the middle of the 20s was probably the right spot for him, or towards the end of the first round. But he's a 1-year starter, essentially. Not a lot of starts. He's going to sit, probably much like Love did for Green Bay. He's probably going to sit a couple years if Stafford elects to play a couple more. But he'll be learning there. But he's going to have to sit and wait because he needs to play more football. He is not a polished quarterback, but very talented.
Through all the years that you've covered this league and talked to general managers and owners and players, do you get the sense most teams draft best player available? Do they draft need, or do they mix the two criteria?
I think it's probably a mix of both. I think when you look at all the teams that needed tackle, say Pittsburgh, a lot of people, they think, they drafted that eye anchor. But, Broderick Jones, a young draft pick tackle who they drafted a couple years ago, he's got an injury right now. They don't even know if he's going to play. So I think there are a lot of teams that strictly draft for need. I think, they go through free agency. They see where their rosters are light and say, hey, we've got to select a player here. And typically they're going to trade up or trade down to get that player. Other teams whose rosters are pretty set, and I think we know those teams are teams that have been probably pretty good and are drafting at the latter part of the first round, they're going to be able to draft best player available, where they just sit and take the player. Like, I know we're going to get into the Lions. The Lions needed a tackle. They needed a tackle. There's no doubt about it. They lost Taylor Decker. They're switching Penny Sewell over at left tackle. So here they select the young man out of Clemson, Blake Miller, that guy's got 54 starts. They needed a tackle. They drafted a tackle.
Jim Miller joining us here on X's and Bros, former starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Chicago Bears, works for the Bears on their preseason and during the season, doing TV shows as well here on X's and Bros. When you look at Blake Miller and you see those starts and you see the number of snaps that he played, almost 3,800, which is a program record at Clemson, and he's a 2-time All-ACC performer, I can't help but wonder, as much as I may like the pick, even though I was in favor of Oyonye from Penn State and or Monroe Freeling better for the Lions, how much do you look at that this could be, he's already reached his ceiling, how much better can he get compared to maybe some of the others who have a higher ceiling, for example?
Well, I think guys like Proctor are just physically just strong. Proctor from Alabama is just a mountain of a man. I think when you look at like a guy like Miller or say Lomu, who got taken a few picks later out of Utah, these guys can get stronger. They can get more core strength. I think for Blake Miller, really his biggest knock were his hands. Sometimes he gets his hands out of placement, and that's what gets him in trouble. But he's got great lateral feet to move, and he will get stronger. And typically offensive linemen do, because now they're out of college. This is a job now. It's a profession. They spend more time in the weight room. They get stronger. And I think for Miller, he's a plug-and-play player, but he's definitely getting stronger, and I think he's got to work on his hands a little bit more. He is a very good pick. That is a solid player who the Lions selected. I think Brad Holmes does a really nice job there as a GM of the Lions.
How much have you noticed the athleticism in offensive linemen compared to when you played back in the early 2000s?
Well, it's different now. Even we ran a lot of wide receiver screens when I played with the Bears in the early 2000s. So typically your tackles, your offensive linemen, they got to get downfield. They got to be able to move. The quote unquote cliche that you're playing more in space, that typically, happens. You are with how the game is played now. Look at the Rams, who I brought up. I mean, every play for them with Sean McVay, it looks like a fast break. When I watch the Rams play football, I feel like I'm watching the Running Rebels in Jerry Tarkanian back in the day, because they are just go, go, go. You know what I mean? So it's, your conditioning is a lot better. They play at a faster pace, and they do and are asked to play in space a lot more.
You know the division as well as anybody. The Lions' identification used to be mauling you. Protecting Jared Goff, the offensive line. They lost that identity last year by signing Cade Mays at center, moving Sewell to left tackle, drafting Blake Miller, and a second year with Tate Ratledge at right guard. Do you feel like they've reobtained that type of identity?
Yeah, I think so. I do think, they lost a lot with Frank Ragnow. There's no doubt when he retired, his strength, to me, he was one of the probably strongest centers in the league when they drafted him. A buddy of mine coached him at Arkansas. And it's not like when the Lions took him, he was on everybody's radar. There were a lot of teams that wanted Frank Ragnow. But I think Sewell, being the athlete he is, he'll flip over to left tackle. He's played it before in college. I think they're more solidified now with what they have now. And I think if Blake Miller lives up to his Iron Man reputation, like I said, he played right away and didn't miss a game. I mean, so they should be much better up front to protect Jared Goff and get that running game going.
Chicago won the division last year. The Lions won it the previous 2 years. What do you think is the most important aspect it takes for a team to win the NFC North?
I think, you got to score points. Typically the last 2 years, the NFC North has been the highest scoring division. So, you got to increase your defense. So in order to do that, to keep point totals down, you got to be able to create turnovers, which the Bears were able to do last year. And the Bears did not have statistically, they were not a good defense. Where they were good is they gave their offense more opportunities. That's one of the reasons why they drafted safety that they did, because he gets a lot of turnovers. But I think it's scoring. Either you're going to have to outscore your opponents, or your defenses has to be much better to hold those point totals down. And I think for the Lions, I think today they will. They'll focus on edge rusher. I think they'll focus on linebacker. I think they'll focus on safety. I think they'll focus on D-line, because I think we know that edge rush has got to get better for the Detroit Lions. And I would say the same thing about the Chicago Bears. It's got to get much better. I mean, they had like the 27th ranked defense in the league, but they got a lot of turnovers, and one of the reasons why they were able to win the division.
Yeah, it's a great point. You tweeted out last night, the safety does come with a lot of turnovers. Thieneman gets the ball. Dennis Allen's new Tyrann Mathieu. You also said about the Lions, good pick by Brad Holmes with Miller. Solid tackle for the Lions. Wouldn't be upset if Lomu to the Bears if they decided to go offensive tackle. So cover yourself a little bit. Does that mean you think they also need an offensive tackle in day 2 or day 3?
I do. When they drafted Ozzie Trapillo last year, I don't think they expected their second-round pick to be their starting left tackle, but he ended up emerging for them. And they've got Braxton Jones coming back from injury. They got Amagaji, who's kind of been a project. He's kind of like who the Steelers drafted this year, that eye anchor. You know, he's got all the measurables, but he is a very raw player that needs to continue to learn. And they drafted him, and he was injured. So I still think it's an issue for the Bears. They need to get an edge rusher. They need more secondary help, and they need more defensive tackle help. They were 27th in the league at stopping the run. They need a run stuffer. I've been pubbing that Ohio State. I think Cade McDonald is fantastic. He should be off the board here pretty early here in the second round, I got to believe.
Yeah, I would think so. You mentioned Detroit needing an edge. I mean, I think a lot of people feel that way. I think the edge rushing opportunities in the second round are going to be there, but they're going to go quickly. I think a lot of people see value in players like Cassius Howell, for example, and they see value in Gabe Yakis, who is there in Illinois, of Dennis Sutton, Dennis Sutton out of Penn State. Where could you see a run on that position, or is there a different position that you see a run on? Because you mentioned that in Twitter last night, saying, here come the tackles.
Yeah, with the tackles coming off, this is the defense. Like when I was down at the Senior Bowl this year, this is a great defensive draft. You've got a lot of great edge rushers, like you said. So if you're a team that needs an edge rusher, this is the round where you position yourself. Typically when teams go into rounds, they have like 4 or 5 guys they're looking at. So if your guy's gone, say 4 out of the 5 are off the board, say, hey, we've got to move up to get our 5th best guy or who we think we want. You know, so go get your guy that you want or who is your favorite. So I think this is where you should see a lot of trades in the second and third round to position yourself to get your guy. But I definitely think the defensive tackles, I think the edge rushers, I think the top linebackers. Like for me, if you look at that Kyle Lewis out of Pitt, oh boy, that guy is a player. He can do it all. And I saw him down in Mobile. And you watch, a team will try to trade to get him. There's another player I think is going to be quickly off the board here in the second round.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who feel like he's a little undersized, and they're trying to figure out, is he a safety or is he a backer? So I wanted to ask you about a couple of things. First of all, that trait in him, it's a good segue, but also the short arms of Reuben Bain. Nobody. I think only 3 players have been drafted with that short of arms at that position since 1999, and that short of arms has ever had more than 10 sacks in a season. So how do you weigh the productivity of a player in a good conference like Reuben Bain, but has that type of physical attribute that just most people don't kind of gravitate toward?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, last year this was a complaint about Will Campbell, the tackle who was drafted by the New England Patriots. Didn't seem to bother him up to the Super Bowl. The guy started every game. And so I think you got to trust the tape. I think there are certain things, the measurables that you do say, the history of the position does state that you want guys to have certain lines of demarcation where they need to come in at. But I think we've seen that there are the exceptions. There are the outliers where guys can just flat out play and they can overcome their shortcomings. So I think if you watch a lot of tape on Reuben Bain and you feel comfortable that you can draft him with those measurements, then I think you do it. A guy like Kyle Lewis, like you said, there are guys that are tweeners. A lot of guys who are drafted as safeties have converted to linebackers. I go back to Shaq Mason. If you look at the history of Ron Rivera, when he was the head coach of either Carolina or Washington, he would draft safeties but convert them to linebacker. And Kyle Lewis is to me, he's a linebacker. He's a space linebacker. You can put him out over a slot. He can cover slot receivers. He is that talented of a guy who can play in space. And that's why linebackers now are a little bit lighter when they draft these guys, because they want them to be more space players. It's very rare that you have guys like Jack Campbell's size, who the Lions were able to draft. A lot of guys are more in that 228, 230 role. Very rarely are they coming in at 245, 250, like back when I played. Like Urlacher. We drafted Urlacher. He was a legit 260 when we drafted Urlacher for the Bears.
And he played safety in college. Right?
Yep, another conversion guy, but a lot bigger who could still run.
Yeah, R. Mason Thomas is another one of those guys, by the way, that we were talking about. Kyle Lewis, R. Mason Thomas. One more before we let you go. I was a little surprised at Green Bay doesn't have a first-round pick, but I follow the division. Ironically enough, you bring up Will Campbell. New England drafted a tackle and Caleb Lomu, who could also move inside, I guess. But it is ironic. But Pittsburgh, or I shouldn't say Pittsburgh, your old team, but Minnesota. I was a little surprised at what Minnesota chose to do. Because I thought they were going to go with Thiedemann, who was drafted, of course, by the Bears. But the Vikings took Florida defensive tackle Caleb Banks. Did that surprise you at all?
No, I think for them, for Flores, he does a lot of multiple fronts. They haven't been, to me, they're a little bit lighter, and they've got to be blitz heavy. In order to not blitz as much, you need more beefier guys on your or more active, I should say, defensive tackles. I mean, Flores has the highest blitz rate in the NFL, and a lot of that is he is blitzing to stop the run. So I don't think they want to be as predictable as what they've been on defense when they're close to, over 50% blitz, and it's to do both. And so I think they want to be more balanced defensively, because I think everybody knows when you play Minnesota, you can get a lot of explosive plays because they are so susceptible with how much that they blitz.
Jim, always enjoy the conversation, man. You do a wonderful job, and I mean that sincerely. I always learn an awful lot listening to you. Keep up the great work. We'll talk soon, I hope.
All right, great. Good to be with you.
All right, thanks, Jim Miller. You can follow him on Twitter at @JimMiller_NFL, the former player and former Sirius XM host as well. Just a reminder that the NBA playoffs are here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, boosts the whole postseason. Playoff starts, meaning you can kind of turn it up round by round. We've seen that already. We saw it in Game 1 with the Pistons, of course, and we saw it again in Game 1 and 3 between the Knicks and the Hawks. DraftKings turns it up too, with a profit boost available every single game day that's taken place. From the first round all the way to the finals, new sportsbook customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app today. It's really easy. Use the code HUGE, and you're ready for that big moment. You turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. It's in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 years or older, Michigan only. Eligibility restrictions do apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. Net bet boost restrictions apply and vary when offered. Boost only applies to winnings. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.kings or sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. This is a limited time offer. Final results real quick, Andy. Final results of the poll question from yesterday. How confident are you in Brad Holmes? What did the majority of people say?
Shaky was what people said for the most part, and then that was at 56%, and then confident was 44%. Supreme confidence and no faith. So people on higher or low on either one. There wasn't anything on either one of those.
Okay, we've got another Mitch Lyons Wealth poll question right now. Grade the Lions pick Blake Miller, A, B, C, or I wanted someone else. We'll give you the results on Monday. Hope you enjoyed the show. Tell your friends. We're back Monday, 6 o'clock. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. The Huge Show later on today at 3 o'clock on these same great station affiliates, brought to you by Avello Airlines.
Mitch Lyons here, founder of Mitch Lyons Wealth, where we create your best game plan to protect, grow, and win.